A very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mangu Shampagi. A controversial loan, $200 million US dollars, borrowed by the government of Uganda from the PTA bank in 2016. Parliament approved, ended up in an investigation by the Parliamentary Public Accounts Committee. It produced its report. There was a threat that of censuring Finance Minister Matia Kasaija and sanctions against or action being taken against the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance and Secretary of the Treasury, Keith Mhakanizi. That has been now, the censure effort has for now been cooled down by Parliament as the Auditor General is ordered to carry out a new investigation into, a forensic audit actually, into what happened around that money. Now, there's been controversy around Uganda's borrowing. The country has benefited from about 7 rounds of debt forgiveness under the highly indebted poor countries debt forgiveness scheme of the Paris Club, also known as HIPIC. I think we've gone through 5 HIPIC rounds, I think, for now. I could be close to about 7. What does this mean? I have heard that some people have said the money was borrowed. Yes, the money was requested for, approved by Parliament, and was borrowed. What nobody knows is what it did or where it went. And the Auditor General should be able to investigate that. We have been unable to get in a technical person from the Minister of Finance or the Minister himself to explain their part of the story. We hope we'll get them another day. But the people have been behind this investigation. Those for Kasaija's neck and those against Kasaija's neck are all in Parliament. They'll be telling us, they'll be helping us understand what exactly is going on. Let me introduce, tonight on the Fourth Estate, Mr. James Kakoza, Member of Parliament for Kabula in Liantonde District. Very nice to have you, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me here.
Thank you. We have Onapito Ekomoloit. He is Legal and Corporate Affairs Director at Nile Breweries AB InBev and a panelist on the show.
Good evening, Charles, and I'm honored to be with the honourable members of Parliament here.
And last but not least, Gerald Karuhanga represents Ntungamo Municipality. He's an independent member of Parliament, leaning towards the opposition and particularly the Forum for Democratic Change, which ticket he held when he was Guild President of Makerere University a few years ago. Now he's an independent representing Ntungamo Municipality and a member of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee. Gerald, very nice to have you.
Thank you, Charles. Good evening.
Did I forget to say that James Kakoza is a member of the National Resistance Movement? I thought that doesn't need to be
This time around, I'm a ticket.
And a former junior minister.
A former minister, yes, a former minister for general duties at the Minister of Health. Yeah. Mr. James Kakoza, I want to start with you.
Yeah.
To help us understand. And I want you to tell me, like, I know nothing about this loan.
Yeah.
What exactly is the controversy around this money, from your perspective? As
a mere $200 million, if I may say.
Of course, if it's a loan has to come to Parliament. It must be approved. If it comes as budget support, the Minister of Finance has to say the details. And then once it's committed to Parliament, they give it to Economic Committee. And then they bring it back, we discuss the report. Then, but always those loans comes when they are tagged. They are purposeful, their intentions and the objectives of those loans. Especially
this particular loan. Yes. What was the process that you went through, that we went through as a government?
Of course, this loan was brought in 9th Parliament. At the beginning, it was rejected. Then after that, they repackaged it, Minister of Finance, then it was approved the second time. Of course, it had, when you read the report which came from the Economic Committee, they were saying it was for budget support. It had some 4 objectives: money to go to national medical stores, another one for agriculture, another one for other sectors, 4 of them. But of course what happens, that the loans which are approved Then once they goes to Treasury, they go to Consolidated Fund. And then that Consolidated Fund, we call them Treasury operations. Within they have a vault itself. So that's where the money goes in the pool. But of course there are rules of the game that money to be approved, also Parliament must appropriate it for a particular purpose.
I asked you that at the beginning that you school me through this loan,
Yeah.
like a primary 6 pupil. So what you're telling us and our viewers is that this loan came on the budget framework paper for the budget of 2015-2016.
That's true.
And Parliament, in its wisdom, rejected it.
True.
Treasury went back and repackaged this
True.
loan
Yeah.
and returned it in the budget of 2016-2017.
As an
And Parliament
Exactly.
approved it.
That's true.
And you said it was targeted to for
Agriculture,
yes,
National Medical Stores, and there are other tools which I don't remember. But when you look at the budget framework paper of 2016-2017, it was projected in as an external funding as a budget support.
representing what percentage of our budget?
Of course, it was representing about 25% because the domestic revenue was projected in to be 75%.
Honorable Gerald Karhanga, let me turn to you quickly because we need to understand. Many people are saying Kasaija faces censure. Muhakan is in trouble over PTA loan. We don't seem to understand, to have a full grip of what the actual details are.
But before Karhang comes in, let us put on record that you know, when we are members of Parliament, we are not against, we are not for, I for one, but we are there to see the money we appropriated did the particular.
We'll discuss that.
Yeah.
We'll have opportunity to discuss that.
Yeah.
To discuss the role you play as members of Parliament
Okay.
and where this leads us. I need you to explain to me, like I'm a primary 6 pupil, and I know there are some young people watching us. They see this controversy. It gets very exciting at some stage to see a discussion about a censure in Parliament,
Yes.
because they haven't been too common these days. People remember very, very old censures that happened before. Just explain to us, to help us understand. So, the loan first appears in 2015-2016 budget framework paper.
Yeah.
It is rejected. Why was it rejected then?
Firstly, about 4 years ago, Parliament appreciates that indeed we're highly indebted to medical suppliers, people who supply medicine and the other supplies. And this was certainly through information from Ministry of Finance, National Medical Stores, and Ministry of Health. So there was an initiative to obtain money to clear these debts, because the suppliers were saying that soon we will not be able to supply any drugs, and therefore that would imply that in our hospitals would not see medicine. So in 2015-16, Parliament actually passed a supplementary budget for the National Medical Stores. And then still there wasn't adequate funding, so that was never cleared. So a loan is in the same year, Minister of Finance comes to Parliament seeking to obtain a loan of $200 million from PTA Bank. And it was shrouded in lots of economic gymnastics. It wasn't clear to Parliament. You could not easily explain why this loan actually, why they need this money for. So Parliament unanimously agreed and said, no, this is certainly unclear to us. You are not seeming, you don't seem to be interested in explaining exactly what you intend to use this money for. So Parliament rejected it. They went back and indeed repackaged it, but you could still read that in the wording it was largely the same loan, but just with a little bit of change in nomenclature, tweaking. Parliament, as we inquire into this matter as a committee, when we studied, we realized that indeed when they brought it back, still most members of Parliament were, when you read the Hansard, were not excited about it. They actually kept opposing it until the Minister of Health stands up and says, honorable members, we have a crisis. If we don't get this money, in a few days to come, we will not see any medicine in any hospital in Uganda, especially public hospitals. We will not see any other medical supplies. And at that point, when you follow the answer, then you realize members now begin to literally accept and say,
Help
okay.
me understand.
Yeah.
Help me understand. From what you're talking about it, and Kakoza was talking about it, the money in the repackaged version was meant for about 4 institutions broadly: National Medical Stores, Rural Electrification Agency, Ministry of Works, and Government of Agriculture.
Yeah.
Why would it be the responsibility of the Minister of Health to convince Parliament to borrow this money? I thought that borrowing is the responsibility of the Ministry of Finance.
Again, like I said, this loan was shrouded in lots of secrecy. It wasn't clear to Parliament. Now, the reason why I think it remained unclear is that they kept saying that this is for fiscal purposes, and they kept not breaking it down until members really insisted, and then they brought a schedule. Mm-hmm. And now it's from this schedule that we see that indeed money was meant for medical supplies, for electrification, and for Ministry of Works. That informs what really causes the decision for Parliament to decide and say, it's okay. Since this is going to save lives largely, let's pass this loan.
So just before I come to Ona, who is a former member of Parliament, by the way, I need to inform our viewers that Ona has been in Parliament before, so he understands these things much better than I do, because he did also approve some loans during his time. I requested that the two of you, as members of Parliament, explain this to me, break it down as much as possible. What do you mean when it was broken down in a schedule? What's the schedule?
So the schedule is normally it's an annexure to the main statement, and basically it explains, like in this case, it's more fresh the detail.
Okay.
So in this case it was a listing, and mostly actually that's what schedules do. They tend to outline the specifics. So in this case, that's how we find the Minister of Finance saying, "Oh, this money actually is largely meant for medical supplies. Part of it is meant for works and electrification." Now, quickly there, you will realize that even actually as we process this one, when the minister was seeking for this loan from PTA Bank, they asked invoices from these entities. So literally this money was to get the loan and refund, literally pay back the suppliers, because this money was, the suppliers had already taken place. So government owed suppliers. So the money was supposed to be obtained. And then
go to pay
the suppliers.
Did it?
Now that's what didn't happen. And that's where we get to see the mess, and that's where we begin inquiring into it as the Public Accounts Committee, and we find unbelievable facts.
We'll come to the facts in a moment. But Ona, just a moment, Honorable Kakoza, I'll come back to you. I need to draw Ona into this discussion. Ona, the level of efficiency of Parliament for a loan that came in 2016, 2017, in 2018, it is already a subject of investigation. I'm not quite clear what exactly is going on here, because the speed at which this investigation is moving, and the speed at which the money was gotten, and the process in which the money was gotten, seems to be a little bit too fast for the way we do things here. Just wondering if there's anything unique about this particular money.
I'm happy that you asked the honourable members to educate us on this issue, because I'm one of those who deliberately has chosen not to understand this, because I don't share the outrage, I don't share the excitement about this. I'm a bona fide cynic when it comes to anything to do with the government and money, because I've said it on this show before. there is nothing new, unfortunately, for the country. We have seen this deja vu. We have had these stories before. And the unfortunate bit is, since I was in Parliament, ministers were censured about the same issues. It has always been about money. But no lessons learned, nothing has changed. Because I think structurally, the way government expenditure is, unfortunately, the MPs end up with postmortem and scratching the surface. The money paper trail is always elusive. And I think if Parliament could just dedicate one full year to just open up the way government finances work and understand where does money go, whether it's from URA, whether it's from borrowing, whether it's, there is a nexus of Ministry of Finance, Bank of Uganda. We always get bits and pieces. Remember the golden handshake, then you have this kind. You just get moments when MPs rally to action and then everyone goes back. And so you are saying, is it surprising? It's not surprising. Of course, I know the peers in Ministry of Finance has had run-ins with MPs, so maybe these are some of the permutations of the agitation towards him. He may feel he's being victimized because this is not coming out of the blue. There has been a lot of occasions when he has been pushed against the wall. And for the minister, I mean, the MPs will explain to us exactly what his crimes are. But I'm saying, until when we truly understand how government finances work, we can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. The MPs will say otherwise, but as far as I see, this is not a story, would say. It's not a story, unfortunately.
Honorable Kakoza, picking up from what Ona has just told us.
Yeah.
You, as Parliament, as the 10th Parliament, you're smarting from a fairly unpopular constitution amendment in December last year, and what you're doing is just trying to excite us that you're serious about following the money without intending to actually deliver anything substantial to the Ugandan taxpayer or whoever gave this money through.
I don't think so, because the work of Parliament is to check exactly the executive, how the money has been. You know, Parliament, by Constitution, is the one which is mandated to appropriate money. But its work also is to check them how that money is used. That's why you have Public Accounts Committee. The Auditor General always audits and submits to Parliament. So we always, it's a routine that we have to check how
Peter
this...
just told you, he sat in that Parliament before.
Yeah.
You do the same thing, the same way, expect different results. So
Human-
why should any Ugandan be paying attention to you as members of Parliament over this money, whether it was given and was stolen, or it wasn't given? Why?
But of course, we say errors and omissions. It doesn't stop you to do your work. Or if they are deliberate, then you must correct them. You can't leave them like that. Though in their Parliament they censored, but we cannot continue. Also, when we appropriate money, people to take it and we don't check it.
Your position as the MP for Kabula, James Kakoza, you told Parliament that they needed to follow the processes. You advised that it is important that this matter be investigated to a logical conclusion through the Auditor General before Karuhanga's committee can go ahead with,
of course,
whatever action.
My intention and my spirit was, you see, when you are auditing, there are two things which you have to put in mind. It must be narrative to understand who took the money. And if you are not sure who took the money, either you go back and get an expert and tells you this is ABCD. If Gerard Karuhanga took a shilling, it must be evidence-based. If Onapito took money, you must know. These are treasury operations. Treasury operations always include external funding, domestic revenue, and the budget support. Particularly, what my brothers did, they did a job. But to reach at a logical conclusion, which is narrative, and anybody to understand a particular individual who took how much, when did he take it, and on whose account, it will help Parliament to make a thorough decision. Because the Auditor General will go in these treasury operations and look at that loan. If it was an extra...
The people who argue, Mr. Kakoza, that what you and your colleagues who follow that line of thinking were essentially doing is buy time for the Minister of Finance and his team as finance to get some breathing space, and then Ugandans will move on.
No, figures, even if it's 10 years, they don't die, they don't rot, you'll get them. Because what happened in 2016, if it was a projected resource and it was external funding, the books are there. And for what purpose? If really the Auditor General comes out and say, please, this money was meant for national medical stores, this was the amount supposed to be, and Parliament appropriated it, it's against the law, the Public Finance Management Act. Because when you appropriate money, it's tagged. And once it's tagged, Parliament passes. If you don't do it, it's a fraud.
Let me just put this question to you.
Yes.
Before Parliament finally came around to approve this loan,
yes,
did you as an NRM caucus discuss this matter?
No, even if they discuss...
No. My question is specific.
Yeah.
Did this matter come up in the NRM caucus?
No, it didn't, because it didn't come up because the reason is simple. According to the first, when they rejected, this loan are committed to the Committee of Parliament, who do the work on behalf of Parliament. And the end result is Parliament to pronounce itself, as Honorable Gerard Kalanga said. And after that, then we go and check, because our part, our person, our expert, is the Auditor General, to say the money you appropriated this time is ABCD, did the particular work, and you go about it.
Gerard, so from what Kakoza is saying and what we have had out of the discussion, where it is at the moment, you're huffing and puffing, you as PAC, and maybe throwing good money after bad money. Yes.
This is a very critical matter. It has two sides or legs. The first one being the processing of this loan, and this is where we find real gross issues, and then the utilization of it. So, firstly, from the entities, Ministry of Finance demands that they produce invoices that they are going to obtain a loan to clear people who supply these ministries, and that is sorted. So, National Medical Stores gives invoices to Ministry of Finance, and so does REA and Ministry of Works. Now, once this is done, then they come to Parliament and pick the loan. So what happens? At that point, when we go into our inquiries, we discover, and these are unchangeable facts. That's why I keep wondering what even the Auditor General is going to do. What do we discover? That firstly, the governor, Bank of Uganda,
you see, my nexus,
the Director of Finance in charge of borrowing, the Accountant General, strongly insist, tell the Minister of Finance, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance, that this is a bad loan, we don't need it. They insist and put it to the Permanent Secretary, the Minister, that this is a bad loan, we don't need it. They didn't listen. Now, for them to make their positions clear, they even left these meetings and went individually and started writing the Minister of Finance, copying in the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Finance. What does the governor say? That, look, I have $2.8 billion in reserves. If you need any money, come and pick it. You don't need to borrow. Borrow at 5.6%, $200 million, you end up losing another $81 billion in interest. What does the Accountant General write? That this loan is expensive, that we qualify to obtain a loan from the World Bank that is 0 interest rate, that is 5.5 years grace period. We don't need to borrow.
What is the period to this money
The
from
period,
PTA Bank?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
So that's why this investigation is actually very important.
Very important.
Because you're already paying heavy interest on it.
Actually, to make it very serious, this year alone, it's one of the highest reasons one of the main reasons why we are paying the highest amount of money ever in debt repayments. Because this loan alone, we are going to pay 389 billion as part of the debt repayment this year, particularly for clearing the PTA loan. And after these 2 years, we'll have paid an 81 billion shillings as interest for what we could have avoided. Because there was an opportunity to borrow, zero interest rule from the World Bank.
Help me understand.
Yes.
You going into this investigation, and I know you have produced a report as back.
Yes.
Why was there pressure to borrow this money?
Exactly. That's why we're putting our dots. We need to put these dots together. Now, so these players, stakeholders, advise the ministry, and the minister with his permanent secretary insist that indeed we must borrow. Now, when we get concerned, so we keep inquiring why, what was the motivation? So we say, okay, maybe because there was a crisis, because what Minister of Health was saying that very soon we'll not be getting money for drugs. And we thought that was actually the issue. Then what do we discover again? That the permanent secretary, Minister of Finance, again served as the former chairman, board of directors of PTA Bank. So we keep wondering, why would your colleagues, you have a director of finance in charge of borrowing. He's telling you, we don't need to borrow this money. You have an accountant general. An accountant general is one of the most critical officers in the Ministry of Finance. He tells you, look, this one is bad. Then he insists. The governor writes a 2-page letter, explain to you why we don't need this loan. You insist. Now, unfortunately, the Parliament never got to know all this before passing this loan. If there had been a little more information about all this detail, before, I am certain that we would never have seen
now,
Yes or no?
that's where my point comes in.
Now.
In all the, call them scandals that we have gone through, this is always the issue. There was evidence, and so did this, or someone tried to do this, and that's where Parliament and maybe many other players in government really have to ask themselves, when will it stop? If we consistently identify that there is defying of procedure, it means there is no ownership. And that's the tragedy of public delivery. There is no ownership. I'm sure many of us around this table might be having businesses or personal. Nobody can allow you to mess around where he has ownership. So how can someone, assuming what you are telling us is true, just go ahead and do the wrong thing, and people are just saying, please, it's wrong, and he goes ahead to do it, and nobody can stop? How does government operate like that?
Okay.
Something small to that point.
Yes.
That's why
just a moment. Ona described himself as the certified cynic on these matters. Yes. There is someone who is an even bigger cynic called Lincoln Sayuni. He's watching us from Kisasi. And he says, what parliamentarians do is mainly one thing. They hint on some rotten affair, involve the media, score politically, and life goes on.
Yes.
Bear with us if we start suspecting that part of these sums of money is used to compromise them. No, you members of Parliament. So you say what you want to say, and then we'll take a break.
Yeah. That's why I insisted that this time around, you see, everything which happens, you must run from it. And if you learn from it, maybe something can happen. Because the best way to go and hang that person, why did we pass money? You came lied Parliament, we appropriated money, you went ahead, the Auditor General will be able to deal with that PTA loan and say, please, this man is wrong totally, completely. Because that treasury operations will be identifying was that money for external budget support? If it was budget support, what did it do? So Parliament to come in as its job, what Karanga was saying.
Even if we this time identify the minister to be in the wrong and we chop him off. Until when we get to a stage whereby nobody will have the right and the power to do what they want because they are holding a position.
But
This will remain
some
gymnastics.
ministers have been going.
That's what I'm saying.
I think the
Yes,
question
some
Honor is
ministers
asking-
have gone.
Another minister will come in.
I think the question Honor is asking is, so what?
We must stop it.
Human beings, integrity, their integrity and morals, there is no yardstick.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion. Can Parliament actually lead us to the
I
bottom
hear
of this
you.
matter and get this
I hear
answer?
your concern.
After short comment.
We don't.
You're still watching the Fourth Estate, and like I confessed my ignorance at the beginning, I need, this is a labyrinth of whatever goes on in government. So if you're watching us and you have some understanding of government borrowing, and particularly details on this particular loan and the controversy in Parliament, kindly send me a WhatsApp or text me. We'll open the phone lines for you to be able to share with us. The bigger question is, can Parliament be trusted to investigate this matter to a logical conclusion and give Ugandans answers that are bankable? Nteje Asimwe is watching us and has a few questions for the members of Parliament in studio. His basic question is, let me get Nteje's question. Nteje is asking, Gerald, if this loan request by Minister of Finance was not clear to Parliament, why did you go ahead to approve it? 2, what is your case now against Kasaija and Mhakanize? Why is the censure hanging over his head? Let me start with you, James, to help us.
Yeah,
answer
of
that question.
course, according to my brother Jared Karuhanga, the report they made, they think that Kasaija got money and took it. He got money self-pretense. But we are saying, yes, we need to know he took how much.
200 million.
No.
Yes.
See, it's 200 million, that's about 700 billion.
Yes.
You need to know the account. How much did he share? You need to know the account. Because
I thought
today, Uganda, today as it stands,
to
pick 700 billion, it must have got details of it, where it came from. If it came from a consolidated fund without approval of the Auditor General of a warrant, because there is no money which can come from the consolidated fund without the warrant of an Auditor General, then we shall know the details and know either Kakoza or Mwangusa or Honorable Jared Karanga took some money, how much, which account, and we shall know. We will be dealing with that. It's better to make a diagnosis and know and make a strategy how you deal with it. I agree with the Honorable Napito. He said there have been censoring ministers. They have been going away. At the end, they go on the street. Parliament has passed a law that whoever who took a coin of public funds, they sell your property. And I want to empower the implementing agencies. They should get interested to know exactly. Because if Auditor General comes out and say, please, Kakoza took this money. It was a public fund. It was meant for national medical stores. Why did you take it?
Honorable Kakoza,
Yeah.
from what Gerald shared with us and from what we discussed even before,
Yeah.
this is a very short-term loan. It was targeted to specific entities of government, National
That's
Medical
true.
Stores, Rural Electrification Agency, Minister of Works, and Minister of Agriculture. The money was borrowed. Parliament sanctioned the borrowing.
We
I want to
appropriated.
believe
We
you
appropriated
that money.
Exactly.
Now you can't track where the money went or what it did.
No, we can't, because the Auditor General gives a report.
And the Auditor General,
2016, 2017.
you received a complaint
Yeah.
that ended up on the floor of Parliament that triggered the investigation by the Public Accounts Committee.
Yeah, that's true.
So the money can't be traced as of now. Gerald shared with us, and I saw some communication. We discussed some communication before we came on air.
Yeah,
The reservations
Yeah.
of the Bank of Uganda,
that's true.
the reservations of the Accountant General
Yeah.
that were captured before this money was borrowed.
Yeah, of
So
course.
what more investigation are you looking for
No.
from your perspective?
The investigation will come up with, because if it was external funding, it will go on the balance sheet of government. Was it a budget support? Yes. what were the entities? There will be no. Did they get that money?
No, they didn't.
No, they appropriated money. According to the, when you download the treasury operations, they give them the appropriated money.
No.
Yes, they got the first installment, National Medical Stores got a loan, but it was not enough.
What?
No.
That's
You're an advocate of a forensic audit by the Auditor General
yes, I agree.
on this particular matter.
I want it
What do you want the Auditor General to investigate?
to go particularly on that particular loan, PTA loan. It had 4 sectors. Did those people get money? NMS, how much? Rural electrification.
What does it help if you know for whom you approved as Parliament this particular borrowing to say Minister of Finance or Minister of Finance, you asked us to approve this money.
Yes.
We approved this money.
Yes.
You borrowed this money.
Yeah.
Show us evidence that this money was put some use. I think that's what Park is essentially asking, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Even the Auditor General will be able to tell you that.
Why go back through to the Auditor General when the people who should be answering these questions are with you?
No, of course the treasury.
You never approved money, as Parliament, you never approved money for NMS. You never approved money for Rural Electrification Agency. You never approved this money for Ministry of Works. You approved this money upon a request by Ministry of Finance, Government of Uganda. If that money cannot be tracked on what it did, why do you scatter your
No, it can.
your investigation to asking which DDHS received $10,000 of this $200 million to receive drugs in their district that never arrived?
No. Let me.
Are you stretching your mandate as members of
Any
Parliament?
loan negotiated by government, it's tagged and it must be particular. With a
And-
certain,
and-
and Parliament to approve it, even if it goes in the consolidated fund, it's what it
My
follows.
question
the
is,
objective.
and what Honor has been saying,
Yes.
why should that be of interest to Parliament?
No, of course.
You approved a block figure. Why don't you follow
No,
where the block figure
it
went?
doesn't. They itemize it, as the Honorable Karanga
I mean,
said.
that's the question.
That's why,
Why
that's why Honorable Karanga is saying all the advices from the Bank of Uganda, from somewhere, whatever advice they gave the minister, why these guys, when they came to Parliament, they requested for a particular amount, it was itemized, it didn't reach where it went.
Gerald Karanga, let me come back to you. Answer Anteja Silva's questions. There are 3, and I'll read them for you again. If this loan request by Minister of Finance was not clear to Parliament, why did you go ahead to approve it? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what is your case now against Kasaija and Mhakaneze? Number 3, why is the censure hanging over Kasaija's head?
One, why Parliament approved the loan is that when we asked for further information or details, the Minister of Finance supplied the intention then that indeed largely this money was going to National Medical Stores to clear suppliers who had supplied drugs and other medical supplies. Now, and then the other, the Rural Electrification Agency and Ministry of Works. Now, what case do we have against the Minister Kasaija and the PSC Mhakaneze? One, for the minister, at some point when there was a crisis, and Minister of Health was saying, look, soon we're not going to be able to supply drugs. The Speaker got interested, wrote to the Minister of Finance, particularly the Minister of Finance, asking, we passed a loan here. I am getting letters that soon we're not going to be getting drugs in hospitals. Where did this money go? What does the minister write in reply? He says, Madam Speaker, we asked National Medical Stores supply us invoices of those suppliers that had money from government, and National Medical Stores for over a year and so have never given us these invoices. What was the truth? The truth was, and is still, that it was actually all the invoices. You know how this loan is done, the PTA loan? Is that they don't just, it's not a normal, the ordinary banking process. It's largely a bank that is intended to support governments. Now how they must insist and see what are you going to use this money for. So what government did, what Minister of Finance did, they got these invoices, took them to Kenya, PTA bank, and when you look at the bank statement, when this PTA bank is releasing money, the first tranche, when they release $27 million, you see meant National Medical Stores. So the narrative is even on the bank statement. They release another $30 million. It's put National Medical Stores. So when you ask where did this money go?
When you asked National Medical Stores, did you receive the money?
They said they did
where your loan's cleared and now you're in the
nothing.
In a black.
They didn't get any of this money. So when they got this money, they put it in the they say they put it on the consolidated fund account and spent it like any other money we collect from taxpayers. And we said, wait a minute. This loan, even from the way it is received, it has a narrative. The bank indicates where this money is intended for, where it's supposed to go. Because that's what you told the bank, and that's what you communicated to Parliament. So the minister does not only lie, but even further lies in writing. And when we put it to him, he kept insisting that we are wrong until we produced documentary evidence. And we realized that, oh, so these fellows actually came here and obtained money by false pretense. What's the case against PS Makanzi? PS Makanzi, it's a whole mix of so many things. Largely what I had mentioned earlier, the processing. When you put these dots together, you realize that there was certainly some, when you have all these colleagues telling you, we have money here in reserves, 2.8 billion, why would you borrow $200 million at a cost of 81 billion shillings? So we realized that there was, but more so, when he comes to Parliament, we put him these questions. Why would you insist to borrow this money? And second, where is this money? That for us actually, when we realized that the processing was so horrible, now we went to the, where did actually this money go?
What did he tell you?
What do they say? And up to now, we got this money, put it in the consolidated fund, and spent it like any other money. What did you tell Parliament? What did you tell the bank? What is on the documented evidence? What was this money intended for? Wasn't it for medical supplies? Wasn't it for rural electrification? Wasn't it for Ministry of Works? Was it money that you intended to get and put it in a general basket?
Charles, I just wanted
to
belabor my point. Listen, the honourable members. I think the crisis we have in terms of the way government is constituted is that we are left often with dealing with when damage has happened. It seems there is no capacity, either due to inadequate checks and balances or possibly collusion among critical players in government to make sure that money is not lost before it's lost. In other words, people should be able to access money after they have exhausted all the necessary
avenues,
roadblocks, and there is actually someone who can stop. Everyone can be stopped. Unfortunately, it looks like there are some people who cannot be stopped. So I think the lesson for Parliament is, can we restructure the accounting system of government to create a system that will stop everyone? Is it possible? If it is not possible, then we're in trouble. If there are some people who cannot be stopped, they will always get out.
You're a former member of Parliament.
No, I'm now in the private sector.
Can you answer that question?
Is it possible? Unfortunately, with the current structure, it's not. Because I know in the private entities, everyone can be stopped. A CEO can be stopped, board chairman can be stopped, shareholder can be stopped. But if some people cannot be stopped when they want to do something with government money, we're in trouble.
Honorable Kakoza, can you help Ugandans appreciate the value of your postmortems? That this person was killed, blunt object trauma, on the head. It caused, we suspect it caused internal bleeding, and the person died. And the next person, blunt object trauma, we suspect caused internal bleeding in the brain, and the person died. And this person we suspect. What is the value of your post-mortems as members of parliament? There are lots of cynics here. Musa Ladu sent us a message and said, well, we know parliament, they will go through these motions, they play to the gallery, nothing will happen out of this.
Since I came into parliament, systems have been changing. Why? Society is very dynamic, and human beings, the way you broke another door, another human being to break it thinks otherwise. For instance, there is integrated finance management system. That system was brought. After that, we brought a law of public finance management system. That's why now the strength of parliament is saying, please, if you budget, you must have a work plan. You must have an investment plan. By the time we appropriate money for you, we have to know what you are going to use the money for. So if you don't do it and you fraud the law, we are able to go to your neck, which was never used to be before. I remember when they were introducing that.
Because the problem is that people are presenting all these what you call plans and what. Then you find out later that they are fake, they are flouting. No. I'm saying,
but on this particular case, actually on the spotlight,
yes,
for the two members of parliament, is not even Matia Kasaija and Keith Makanzi. It is you parliament. No. People asking, we know money gets borrowed, money gets stolen, or will disappear somehow, whether it is stolen or not. And Parliament does an investigation, IGG does an investigation, Auditor General produces a report. Nothing comes out of it.
No, you know,
year in, year out.
You must know the roles we play. Even if Parliament does whatever it needs, you know it. You cannot be police, you cannot be an investigator, and you can't pass a judgment. There are some agents which are supposed to do this work. If PAC and Auditor General has come out, Gigi, what are you waiting? If Mwangusha took money, and you know the law is on the table, that if Mwangusha took money, sell his assets, put him to prison, and brings back the government.
You're asking the Auditor General to do a forensic audit?
Of course, a forensic by definition.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
You're asking the auditor, your position is, get the Auditor General to do a forensic audit. So dedicate officers, facilitate them, send them to do this investigation, send them, like we have seen before, send them to Kenya to PTA Bank and ask, did you release the money? When did you release it? What were the invoices that you got? Confirm, were the invoices from Nassau Road or Nkrumah Road, or were genuine invoices? Yes. So the money came. Do we still owe the suppliers?
No, a forensic audit.
Yes, we do. Do we still money to suppliers of rare? Yes, we do. Do we still owe money to this and that? Yes, we do. And?
No, Mwangusha,
so after that?
In auditing, a forensic audit is for prosecution. It's not a normal audit. The moment they say that, the moment they say forensic audit, it's ready for prosecution.
You're not prosecutors in Parliament?
Of course, once that Auditor General report said that, this is what happened, the implementing agencies will take it on.
So it will come back to you. So why are you asking for that as members of Parliament?
Of course, to make an opinion, which is expertise. It will give you evidence-based.
How does the opinion? How does the opinion?
The opinion will come like this.
Of the Auditor General's forensic audit, help you as members of Parliament to trigger other agencies of government, particularly the IG, to...
That forensic audit will tell you that Kakoza took so and so. And the purpose of that loan, you didn't utilize it properly. And it's against the law. That's why Honorable Karhanga was telling you that what we found out, it was a mess. And within that mess, there are frauds. And once it comes as frauds, then a person will be personally liable. This is why we are saying that please make...
Do you have a history as Parliament of holding individuals liable over these matters?
Of course, there are many.
Give me an example.
There are many.
Give me an example.
The Treasury memorandums are coming for handshake. We are waiting to see. Of course, Parliament stops somewhere. We do recommend...
I thought the handshake story was closed a long time ago.
No,
we moved on.
No. The law says that all the actions you have to report within 4 months on the recommendation, especially on public funds, to Parliament. That's what it means.
When did
Treasury
Parliament
memorandum.
end
And
the
then the
handshake
action,
investigation?
then the action taken.
When did Parliament end its investigation on the handshake?
It ended in I think, was it? You can remind me.
When was that?
It was around August. It was around August.
Well, it was last year, and
It was around
you
August.
know, Charles,
Mm.
it is very true. We can't run off from the fact that we sometimes investigate, write very serious reports, and Parliament passes them, and largely the executive does almost nothing about them.
And Parliament is incapable of doing anything to the executive that has done nothing about your report.
No, not entirely.
Mm.
Number one, what we have to do is ultimately we keep at the back of our minds with the hindsight that we represent Ugandans. So we need to account to them by telling them what's happening to their money.
Many
So-
Ugandans watching us, I have been reading for you some of the messages.
Yes.
The phone is ringing off the hook, by the way. Viewers want to join in this discussion. They're saying you're playing to the gallery.
Well,
They're extremely cynical about what you can achieve. Joseph Nwabina is asking that if the money was asked for NMS, did you check as PAC whether there have been drugs? If the Minister of Health came to you and said, if you don't approve this loan, we'll be in a crisis within a few days, NMS will not be supplied, so we'll not have drugs in the hospitals. Have there been drugs? Has NMS come back to report the same crisis? If it hasn't, have you asked where the money they are, where the supplies are coming from and what kind of arrangement they have with their suppliers?
So quickly, one, it's true, like I said, that in many ways the executive really frustrates Parliament.
Mm.
But we've had some biting.
Mm.
I remember in the 9th Parliament, in the Public Accounts Committee, when we were handling what eventually came out as the Basajabara scandal,
Mm.
the 169 billion. I remember we saw the Minister of Finance being fired. We saw the Attorney General being fired. And so sometimes we make, let me come back to this PTA loan case. So halfway the inquiry, medical stores writes to the Speaker, writes actually the Prime Minister that starting 1st July, we're not going to see any medicine. And we're halfway in the inquiry in the hospitals. So it's all over the media, it's a big issue.
This is July when?
Last year. And so what I did at that point, I was very concerned. I said, well, we are in the middle of this inquiry, so how do we proceed? We are not going to have drugs. So I got, at that time I recall, the Minister of Finance, the Permanent Secretary Minister of Finance, the Minister of Health, and the Director General of National Medical Stores. And I took them to the Speaker's office. I told Madam Speaker, we have a crisis.
You as Gerald Karuhanga?
Yes, then.
As Member of Parliament?
And because I was chairing the Public Accounts Committee, so...
So you took them as chair of the Public Accounts Committee?
Yes. And I told the Speaker, we have a crisis. We are investigating this money. We know this money should have gone to procurement of drugs, largely. And the medical store is saying, just a few weeks from now, we're not going to have drugs in hospitals. So do we just keep investigating, or something has to be done immediately? And the Speaker was certainly very, very indeed angry at the Minister of Finance, because she was following what was happening in Parliament. She knew why we had passed this loan, and she was very disturbed that indeed we had not seen money being received by the medical suppliers, and we're now in this crisis. And she asked them, where did this money go? And demanded that she needs to see these suppliers paid. Now guess what happened? That very day, Minister of Finance released 42 billion shillings. That very single day to the medical suppliers. And I still believe that's how we were able, in the meantime, to be getting some drugs.
So
the question
was
actually,
this money part of this loan? The money that was disbursed?
Now that's what up to now. That's why they can't tell us, because for them they keep saying we got this money, threw it in the general basket, and we kept picking and giving out like any other money.
Isn't that what happens to a lot of monies whether it's taxpayers' money or loan money
And
or grants.
Fortunately for loans,
Of
for loans,
Eh.
loans, whether it is domestic borrowing or foreign borrowing, it is clear. The narrative bank, first of all, even the bank must know, because the bank has to explain to its board. The bank has to explain to its shareholders where the money is, where is it going. But also, most importantly, you're going to do a transfer of millions of dollars. This transfer has to be cleared. So, for this transfer to be cleared, they must know why this money is intended.
General,
So when this is done, and ultimately at the end of the day, you ask yourself, firstly, why on earth would anybody working in the Ministry of Finance with lots of money?
You make a fantastic submission.
yes.
I hear you. The public appeal is there. The cynicism coming from our viewers and the public generally is, to what effect is this huffing and puffing from Parliament? How much can it achieve?
Yeah, and that's why I want to come in.
Well, I've just
You
explained
need-
that at
you
least
need-
we saw $42
we need
billion
to-
raised for drugs.
From all this, we need to learn lessons and say, are there reforms within law or within best international practice that we can introduce? For example, if next time the ministry comes and says we need to borrow money for an emergency to pay, why can't money be paid direct to the people who are supposed to receive the money? Why didn't PTA pay the money to the creditors who had advanced drugs to?
Of course.
Why do you first have to bring it to the ministry?
Of course, according to the constitution.
Gentlemen, I'm
But
afraid we need to take a
according
break.
to the constitution, which you have just amended,
Yes,
you
according
can
to the
also
constitution,
amend it.
there is no bank which can give you money without approval of Parliament. And once a resolution of Parliament is made, but as I want to state to the air that
But
any loan which comes is
Comes
tagged.
comes
When,
where? That's
no,
where the problem
when
is.
it comes from the bank, it
To
must
who?
be tagged. It must be tagged to Uganda government with its particular purpose.
But this was budget support.
yeah,
And
if,
from
even if it's budget,
from what we're hearing from
even
you
if it's budget,
is yes, the
Yes.
money, it's like when Charles Mangusha wants to borrow money, he goes to the bank and says, I want to borrow a salary loan. They ask, purpose for this loan. You indicate, I want to buy a car to help me go to work.
so, that's true.
The moment the money is thrown into your account, you pick it out,
And do other things.
go and do other things.
No,
What I'm
that's
sa-
not
what-
how
because-
it works.
because-
The law, that's what they call a
What-
fraud now.
yes, what
The
we are
that's what they call diversion.
What we are hearing here
Yes.
is that the money came and the Minister of Finance threw it into the general basket called the Consolidated Fund. And picking it out of the Consolidated Fund, they don't go and say, this money for...
And that's
Yeah,
what I'm
for
saying.
drugs.
Using
Eh?
your example,
For this
Charles, I'm
invoice.
saying,
And they pick the money
using
out.
your example, I would be saying, ask the bank to pay your car supplier.
Of course,
Exactly.
of course,
That-
Why
this,
do you want to first bring
that
the
was
money?
the promise.
of course, this is what I said. There
Gentlemen,
are loans
gentlemen,
which
I'm
are
afraid,
particular.
I'm afraid we need to take a break.
Yeah.
There are lots of people calling us and there are lots of people sending messages. We'll be able to pick up those messages. There's a particular one called Kasaija, who has said, Kasaija and Makanizi were acting on orders from above. I don't know if they're related. That's why we're acting on orders from above, and he suspects a route where the money must have walked and where it must have ended. But we'll pick some of those up after a very short commercial break. We'll be right back. This last quarter of the show, we will be listening to our viewers put the questions to you, members of Parliament, and ask about this money, and also give us what they think about the borrowing and whether we're able, or Parliament investigations are able, to drive to a stoppage of the hemorrhage. Because I think this is at the center of this discussion. Bernard Mpeirwe is watching us from Lubaga, and he says, if Honorable Karuhanga's submission that from parliamentary approval to bank disbursement, this money was headed to national medical stores, where it never reached, then heads must roll. Concerned agencies like Public Accounts Committee should swing into action. But this is the report of Public Accounts Committee. Gerald is actually representing Public Accounts Committee. Should swing into action because this is a case of obtaining money by false pretenses. And he asked another question. How sure are we that much more of the other monies this Parliament has approved before have not taken the same directions?
Of course, with the treasury operations, once its account, it has got a vote, the Auditor General will come out and say there was a fraud, because that money, once it went there on a consolidated fund, it was tagged. And if it's tagged, then it didn't reach where it went, he will be able to identify who took that money and where did it go.
And?
And then the next action, the implementing agencies will move in action.
Mm.
Of course, Parliament, what it does, you see, when you diagnose a disease, you draw a strategy or you get medicine for it.
Mm.
And you see what used to happen in the past, actually. When money was used to be borrowed and taken to a consolidated fund, it was not tagged. But this time around, the money you come to Parliament to borrow, it's tagged. Once it's put there, it goes to the intended purpose. You, as an office in government, you divert it, you are personally liable under 164(2)
Honorable Kakoza,
by the Constitution.
how many have you held liable? I asked you as a member of parliament, and a member of parliament of the ruling party.
Yeah.
The victims at the end of the day are the people who voted for you, the people you represent, and the people on whose behalf you run this government.
But of course, you have seen ministers from Parliament have left.
Like? Give me an example.
Kabakumba Masiko, Saida Bumba,
Mm.
Attorney General, and others. Viandara is still in court.
Mhm.
All these cases are there. So it's upon the executive now, or the court take upon it. Parliament did its job. You can't say it didn't do its job. It did its job.
Levi Zache is watching us from Nali, and he says, one question for Gerald and Park here. Why weren't they able to recommend better and cheaper avenues for finance to borrow this money from either the World Bank or the reserves with Bank of Uganda? I thought the source of the money and cost of it should have been of Park's interest in the first place. Did you fail on due diligence?
Well, it must be known that the Public Accounts Committee looks at the audits. So then there is also a National Economic Committee that actually processes loan requests. So that's another committee altogether.
Okay.
And they did what they did and took the report to Parliament, and Parliament passed the loan. We certainly could have done better. That loan in the first place, I think, should never have been passed. But since they told us, and indeed a crisis was there, we needed to pay the suppliers for medical supplies, largely, then it should have directly gone there. Now, the concern is when you get this money and you create an account called Trade Facility Account in Bank of Uganda, you get $200 million on this account, and you have a narrative of where this money should be going, different sectors, different entities in government. And then, instead of doing that, you get it and put it in the consolidated fund, because then now you know it's going to be very difficult to trace it because it's in a general basket. So what motivates you to do that vis-a-vis the potential of having people die in hospitals due to lack of drugs? That says so much about our officials in public service.
David in Kisasi says, it is sad that Parliament comes in to do the post-mortem at many occasions. They spend most time discussing answered questions like age limit and seem to have trouble multitasking. One deal at a time. Indeed, this could be a deal for some parliamentarians, both the ones who approved it without all the facts and those making the noise now. Like the other cases, Ugandans will soon forget this after months of expensive investigations. Our memory disk space is very low.
I think.
Let me pick a caller. Let me pick some callers and then we can continue the discussion in here. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Kampala.
From Kampala. Your name, sir?
My name is Okin Pipi.
I'm not sure I picked that well. Yes, please. What's your question or comment? Hello, sir. Go ahead with your question or comment.
Yeah, I just want to, first of all, I want to thank my two colleagues there, Honorable Kakoza and Gerard. Yeah, first of all, Charles, I want to allude to the fact that in that parliament of ours, the way approval for loans, the way the loans are approved in that parliament is actually quite wanting. I think it's basically because of the number. And normally what I've seen when the minister comes with the loan request in the parliament, it doesn't even take like 20 minutes before people can ask questions and the loan is already approved. And in many cases, you find that we are not even there in that parliament. So the beginning of the problem is the way we approach some of these laws. I've been in that parliament for the last 2 years now. But if you get back to the number of loans we have approved in that parliament, I think it's even more than the bills we have passed. This is serious. And then secondly, an investigation like this will not go anywhere. I was the chairperson of the Select Committee on the investigation of UTL. We made serious recommendations. But up to now, I don't even think a single recommendation is being implemented by the It has not passed for 4 months, according to the law. No single recommendation is being implemented. And we are going to pay a heavy, kind of cost to the Ligan government. Because we decided to take over UTL before and without even consulting the Ligan government, which is actually a very big share in UTL. So this is the kind of system we are operating in. I can guarantee you that this investigation will not go anywhere. This money, the $200 million that was given to the Minister of Finance, I think they ended up somewhere. And I know Gerald might have
Honorable,
investigated,
as an elected official,
yes. Where do you think they got the money from the $200 million? That could be part of the money.
And to put this to you, as a member of parliament,
I really do.
As a member of parliament, what are you communicating to Ugandans? You and your colleagues here.
I think we can try to do what we say, the parliament's role, but it will not end up anywhere. It will not help us at all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Can I pick another caller? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
Yeah, hello?
Can you turn down the volume on your TV set?
Yeah, they are turning the volume. Yeah, I'm calling from Bushenyi.
Yes. Your name, sir?
I'm calling from Bushenyi, sir.
Yes, please.
Yeah, actually, I've liked your discussion.
Yes. Thank you.
And some of us, I'm an opinion leader. I'm called Kahara Extra Kampala International University. And I'm an opinion leader.
Yes.
When you look at the conditions which are taking place actually in the economy, they require surgery. Because really, when you look at even a GDP, GDP which is below 4%, and then you look at what is taking place. I was watching a documentary on NTV about the depletion of Madera forest. I am looking at all these embezzlements, all these kinds of corruption. Now who is going to clean the system?
You tell me.
I'm happy. My brother, actually, Kakoza in Parliament, a movement supporter. I'm 100% movement supporter. Karhanga, I have seen your position. Peter, I have been watching your program. Now, when you look at such kind of a situation, now, Takakoza, you have already landed on a platform. Why did you challenge against to Attorney General? Ugandans are not watching reports of saying this one made a mistake. Why can't we reach a level of this democracy so that when you commit a mistake, you resign? Because some of us, where our economy is heading, hakuna mchezo. If it is hakuna mchezo, it is hakuna mchezo. I wish we could revamp actually the system. It is not a matter of saying we have been in the central bank for 20 years, 100 years, and therefore more experience. Some of us started from India. We have not tested our economics. And we're in NRM 311. So where are we? We are out. We are seeing you are actually where you are pushing Uganda's economy. And this is an economy. How can you borrow all these funds? In fact, I'm now suggesting that instead of borrowing these millions of money from these banks, you embezzle them. Money does not go to National Drug Authority. There are no drug medicines in hospitals, in health centers. If we had a strong local government system, we would demand that all this money should be disbursed.
Thank you. Thank you.
That we can allow local government to make a deal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your contribution. Can I pick another caller? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
This is Michael Manje from Chotera.
Yes, Michael. Keep your question or comment brief, please.
You know, you have been trying to stop Mr. Kakoza from expressing himself. From Chotera.
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm supporting Mr. Kakoza's view.
Yes?
Now,
Michael, we are listening to you. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, the 200 million not be shared by only Mr.
Michael, my producer is telling me that you're trying to listen to yourself on your own TV.
The point and who got how much, how was that money shared, they would have understood the handshake.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. Michael, next time you call us, please first switch down the volume on your TV set so that we can hear you well. Hello, we have another caller? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Please turn down the volume on your TV set. That's why we're getting that echo.
Yes, hello.
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from?
This is Fred calling from Mutungo.
Yes, Fred. Go ahead. Keep it short, please.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for the show. Yeah, every time we hear such news, we always have our heartbeats changing. But surely, I am not in line with the Honorable James Kakoza submission of extending to the Attorney General, who did not even endorse this. It should be the Parliament to undertake this, surely, so that the right canon is followed. Because even the other person who was not there in endorsement may not even know how things went, but it should be the person who endorsed.
Thank you.
To follow this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fred. I will pick one last caller. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, sir. Your name and where you're calling from? Please turn down the volume on your TV set.
My name is David.
Your name is?
Hello?
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Yes, good.
Please stop listening to yourself on your own TV set. I will hear you.
Yes.
Yes, talk to us.
Yes, my name is David.
Yes, please.
I'm calling from Chevande.
Yes, David, go ahead.
Yeah, my concern is the MPs, were they explaining the point. I think you need to give them the chance. They cannot just watch. They have to play their part. The way you're saying that they will just submit and nothing will happen. There will be no result afterwards. I think it's they can't at the same time they can't just watch.
Okay.
If something wrong has happened, they can't just watch and look on.
Thank you.
They really have to do their work.
Thank you very much.
I remember it ahead.
Okay.
I thank you. Good night.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're not able to pick more callers. We need to, yes. So
before
can we start and then...
before the honourable members come in, I want to tie in the first caller, who I think was the honourable member of parliament. I didn't pick the name well, and the last caller. What then should parliament do? I think there is certainly room for parliament to do more. First, by looking at the current systems of government delivery, and where can parliament is representatives of the people, and the callers are people, no? So I think instead of, I know that you may say that's how current it should be, instead of waiting for the auditor general report and all this, if you approve, for example, a loan, is there a mechanism to monitor within a month's time, for example, where has it reached? It may not be there in the current procedures of government, but I'm saying that's what parliament should do. We are becoming masters of constitutional amendment. We need to tackle the constitution on even economic issues, not just political issues. Is there room to change the constitution to bring parliament, which is a huge body now, more into day-to-day running of government delivery? There are a lot of experts in parliament, people with all kinds of disciplines, and there are many. Some of them may even be feeling redundant. Can they have monthly reviews of delivery of the executive without obstructing its work? Because that's how private sector works. There's constant review, and Monday special must be followed and stopped in the track before somebody misuses it.
Thank you.
But if we wait for a full financial year, it is too late. It's too late.
Okay.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
I
So
think
can you respond, starting with your colleague member of parliament, who was the first person to call? There is the gentleman from Bushenyi, of course, and what his issues are. Michael Mwanje, Fred in Mutung, and David in Chemando. If we can summarize this, because we have about 4 minutes to get over here.
I would like to thank callers who have called in. Of course, we as members of parliament, we must do our part, and we must continue to fight, because we are the people mandated to appropriate money, and we must ask, where does it go? Does it serve the purpose? If it doesn't serve the purpose, then we stop passing these loans. Two, somebody called that why the Auditor General. The Auditor General is the only person in the Constitution mandated to audit the man of government. By Audit Act of 2008, is the one, once you appropriate money, is the one even who releases it on the consolidated fund. Because there is no money leaves the consolidated fund without a warrant of the Auditor General. So if these things are happening, he must also tell us, this man left the account without the warrant of the Auditor General. If he didn't sanction it, please, you are personally liable under the Constitution, under Article 164(2), that please, we shall sell your assets and bring us back the money in treasury. But Parliament and corruption, may I have no kind words with somebody who is corrupt. We must continue to fight about it, and we must talk about it, and we must condemn it.
Okay. I have an interesting message here from Chris Obore. He is the Director of Public Affairs and Heads Communications at Parliament. And he says, an MP who says Parliament can do nothing is better resigning from Parliament. Otherwise, Parliament should do and be seen to do its part well, then demand that others also do their part well. Parliament should not fold its hands simply because others are not doing their part. Okay. And that message is related to Deborah. Deborah says, I request that as Ugandans, we should keep giving moral support and encourage these members of parliament to keep performing their roles. It frustrates them when we only criticize them over and over again. Their work is not easy. It's better to provide solutions. My thanks to Honorable Gerald Karhanga. Keep it up. The struggle continues.
Our support is to allow them to have good salaries.
Yeah? Honorable Gerald Karhanga, the problem is that the oil money allegations which you spearheaded against the 3 ministers, which turned out to be hot air, can't let the public trust you anymore. You need to cleanse yourself of that saga before you can be trusted again and believe in, and be believed in by the public in another set of allegations. Jose Nwabine in Kabula, Yantonde. Can you respond to this as well, because you'll make the last comments. You had what your colleague said. You had the comments, the gentleman in Bushenyi once. Head should rule so that other people can get these responsibilities. Michael Mwanje, Fred, and David.
Firstly, for Jesse, it was never hot air, and if you've been following closely, both our domestic and international news, you can see that the oil issues are still really tackling some individuals in this government. And so that was never in vain. You need to follow these matters closely. About the PTA loan, $200 million, an equivalent of 700 billion shillings and plus. For us who took time to really inquire into these issues, honestly, what we've shared here and what we probably is shared in so many other quarters among Ugandans, when we keep borrowing this money, increasing public debt at a very, very threatening level, and then we don't see this money translate into right and the well-intended public service delivery, then you keep questioning, are we actually having the right leadership? Are we doing what we are expected from the very people that send us to parliament, that elect the executive head? What is it we are doing? So we must equal account, and on the criticism, I appreciate every other person who criticizes. I think actually you need to do more of criticizing us. Because then we can improve, then we can do better. Because right now, certainly, as people who are representing Ugandans, as people, especially the executive, because sometimes we feel our efforts are really frustrated, but we're not going to give up. We'll keep doing what we can, hoping before even we get better governance. In the meantime, there are certain interventions that we can get. Certain heads must roll. We can't keep with this high level of impunity, and people do unbelievable things. You obtain money by false pretense. You cause such a huge government loss of over 81 billion shillings when we could have obtained a loan of free or zero interest rate. We could have even picked money from our own reserves that the governor was talking about. So because of the consistent wrongdoing and there is no serious punishment, then people get used to, oh, I can get away with anything. And indeed, there are some individuals in this government who have amassed lots of power, who feel their political prowess and immunity are so great that they are indeed untouchable.
Okay,
so
our time is up. We need to get out of here.
We must demystify. That we must stop.
Someone asked a question. Anthony said, did Parliament see the letters of objection from the Governor of Bank of Uganda and the Accountant General before approving the loan request? If so,
not.
how could they approve the loan request? Anthony, apparently, Parliament got to know of these letters after the loan had been approved and disbursed.
During the inquiry.
During the inquiry about the same money. Our time is out. We need to get out of here. You remember, Honor, that we did host a show here at the time of the Uganda refugee, the Refugee Solidarity Conference that took place in Munyonyo. Now, a new scandal has emerged out of our refugee numbers. And the bigger threat is Uganda has actually, in real practice, and in presentation to the international community, projected one of the best refugee policies and best refugee accommodation efforts. Our numbers are really big. From South Sudan alone, you're talking about 1 million. Though we did a story at the East African which was saying the number that they had on the database was lower than that. We have about 500,000 from the Democratic Republic of Congo residing in this country, even as recent as last week and through this weekend. More refugees have been arriving on Ugandan borders, especially in Kanara, arriving at our borders from the Democratic Republic of Congo. When a scandal that refugee numbers and their monies have been fiddled with, you have a whole new crisis to deal with. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to discuss that later.
We should continue. Once a problem comes in and we talk about it and we try to fight it, I think also things will make a headway. But when we don't talk about them and we keep quiet, then also the public will not trust us.
We will continue.
I think we should continue. Even the media should continue. Where you find that somebody is a culprit, we should not give.
On the Fourth Estate, we will continue to provide a platform for us to have these discussions. And on NTV, we'll continue to do the investigations like the one you saw that Sudhir Biarhanga did. We had one last week by Emma Mtaiziwa on what's happening on the lakes.
On the lakes.
And the Daily Monitor and the East African, we're continuing to have these discussions, which we'll continue to do. The question
on the
is,
refugees, we must interest ourselves this arrangement with Israel. What's going on? It appears there is money.
We should continue.
Let me make a promise to our viewers. We will have a discussion about the refugee situation and the crisis emerging out of that, of the refugee handling in this country. Both Israel and the fiddling with the numbers.
Yeah, that's true.
On the next show. From me, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Honorable Kakoza. Thank you very much. Honorable Kakoza represents Kavula County, which is Liantonde.
Liantonde district.
Liantonde district.
Yeah.
And he's a member of the National Resistance Movement. I remember him with the MM3. Me, Museveni, and I. That was about, how many years ago? 2005?
2000. No, it was 2003.
2003. Yes. So we can track back how things have been developing since 2003. Onapito Ekomloit is a panelist and Legal and Corporate Affairs Director at Nile Breweries AB InBev, and Gerald Karuhanga is an independent member of Parliament representing Ntungamo Municipality. He leans to the opposition and is a member of the Public Accounts Committee.
But has he told you so that he's leaning to opposition?
Well, I know. He knows, and that's very
true. Our time is out. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for making time for the show. Thank you very much to you all our viewers for joining us tonight and always, and especially those of you who gave us feedback and each one who watched the show and watches the show. Thank you very much to the production crew that stays up late to deliver the show, to you. And this debate continues on our social media platforms, on Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms on which these discussions are picked up by you, the viewers. And we appreciate your viewership, and we appreciate the feedback that you give us and the debate that you give to this show. From me, it's a good night.